Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Quispamsis, Town of Quispamsis Planning Advisory Committee for Tuesday, July 13th. Can I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Can I have a seconder on that? John, thank you. All in favor? Vote, please.
Try again.
Okay, try it again.
Brenda, you might have to vote again. Okay. Mark, there we go.
I just did. Mine is not showing up. I'm a yes.
Darren's a yes.
Okay, you might have to reboot or restart, guys.
Yeah.
Everybody yes?
Yeah. By a vote of 5-0, motion carried. Next item on the agenda is disclosure of interest. None being, we'll move on to item 4, the approval of previous minutes. Is there any adjustment to the minutes? None being, can I have a motion to approve, please? Brent?
So moved.
Can I have a seconder on that, please?
John will second.
John, thank you. Could you please vote on that, please?
Enough, John? And refresh them. Brent?
They all good?
Shut down PAC and open, shut down the e-scribe and open it up again.
You gonna force it, Violet?
Okay.
Motion carried by a vote of 5-0. Thank you. We'll just give everyone a second to reboot there, so if everyone's ready. Let me know when everyone's ready.
Okay.
Is he okay?
I'll vote by him. I think everybody else is up.
Everyone's good?
Just John, so I'll vote with him.
Okay. Item 5, business arising from previous minutes. Can I have a motion to receive and file, please? Brenda?
So moved.
Can I have a seconder on that? Darren?
I'll second that.
Can we have a vote, please?
There you go, John. Right there. Nope. I'll vote for it. Okay.
Motion carried by a vote of 5-0. Item 6, unfinished business. None being. We'll move on to item 7, new business. Item 7A. It's an application requesting approval for construction on a lot bordering the waterfront. Could the applicant please come up and state their name for the record? And Jennifer, can you introduce the item, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, before you is an application that does require PAC approval, as it is a waterfront development, and that's according to section 6.1, or sorry, 6.I1 and 6BB1 of the bylaw. We're also looking for a variance to side yard setback, as it is a rural lot and requires a 30-meter side yard setback. The lot is proposing to provide a 19.76 yard setback, and the lot also requires a foundation elevation variance of 3.44 meters to allow the construction to proceed as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you please state your name, please? Thank you. You would have received the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or the public asking you any questions?
Nope, I think everything's good.
Perfect. All right. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? Brenda?
Just a quick one, Mike. See that your garages have drains in them. Is that being are they all connected and then go into an environmental?
Yeah,
Sure.
they'll need it, grease. Trying to think of
Yeah, I know what you mean, so I just,
same thing I have at the shop anyway. It's a separator thing.
right,
catches
and it's
oil.
all of the garages that we connected through that?
Yeah, like the 2 parking garages and then the workshop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any questions from PAC to the applicant? None being, is there anyone in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Mr. Bishop?
Yeah, I'll put a motion forward that PAC approve the 3.44 meter foundation elevation variance from section 6F1 of the zoning bylaw 38, 10.14, so 10.14 meter variance from section 25F3 of zoning bylaw 038 for the side yard setback, and to support construction on the waterfront lot as per section 6I and 6BB1 of zoning bylaw 038 for 17 Gilbert Lane, PID 303-41150, subject to the following terms and conditions. 1, preparation of the hold harmless agreement should be executed prior to approval of the final inspection of the dwelling. 2, notification is received by the town or the Department of Environment and local government providing approval for development occurring near or protected drainage channel that traverse the water's western side of the lot line subject to lot. And 3, a building permit is issued prior to construction.
Seconder for that? Brent?
I'll second that.
On the question? Proceed to vote, please. Motion carried by a vote of 5-0, so congratulations. In next 5 to 7 business days, you'll have a letter in the mail with your approval, so please work with the town to ensure all necessary documentation is signed and looked after. Thank you, best of luck.
Thank you.
We'll move on now to item 7B, MPSF Developments, Inc., Subdivision Phase 2, Tentative Plan. Could the applicant please come up and state their name for the record, please, while Dwight introduces the topic for us, please. Thank you. Dwight?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to PAC. So the application that's before, or the subdivision plan that's before PAC is for a proposed subdivision of 6 lots. There's in my staff report, I note that it's 5, but actually it's a typo. There's 6. So this is a subdivision that will create, proposing to create 6 lots with a public street. PAC will recall that the first phase of this was before PAC recently to create lot 21-01, and the street was then a private street. And this is following up on that to take the street and make it to a public street and extend it to service the 6 lots that are proposed. It's before PAC, obviously for review in accordance with the Community Planning Act and the subdivision bylaw, because it's creating a street, public street, and it's also proposing land for public purposes, which both must be reviewed, and recommendations from the Planning Advisory Committee to the Development Officer prior to approval. In addition to that, the subdivision plan proposes a reduction in street right-of-way width. So the subdivision bylaw establishes that the minimum right-of-way width for local streets is 20 meters. In this particular case, it's the right-of-way narrows down from about 25.9 down to 20 and then down to 18. The rationale behind the reduction in the right-of-way is because what's proposed is a 3-meter strip of land along the rear of lots 21-5, 21-6, and eventually further into the property all the way to the old Lamprey Road right-of-way. So to sort of offset and to ensure that the lot widths or the lot areas were met in terms of a minimum, there was a slight reduction in the right-of-way width. One thing I've noted in my staff report, perhaps one thing that might be adjusted is that the right-of-way width starts beyond where the LPP proposes to come out into the right-of-way. Maybe some further examination from an engineering perspective to make sure that the street and all of the elements that would encompass that particular area will work. If that can be accommodated, then it could move forward as proposed. So in any regard, PAC would have to grant a variance to the right-of-way width, even if it's prior to the LPP connection or following. So where this is in a rural area, in terms of servicing, it would be an individual drilled private wells, which in this case is 6 lots. So the subdivision bylaw says that anything less than 10 to 24 is abbreviated, and anything beyond 24 or 25 plus gets into comprehensive. In this particular case, it's below that threshold. However, when we look at the remnant, obviously future development is possible, which means you're getting into higher lots. So at this point in time, it may be, as I indicated in my staff report, it may be better to look at a comprehensive study in the future into the next phase, and then this one, possibly an abbreviated study. But again, that's a recommendation, but according to the bylaw, it is not required. Sanitary sewer services obviously would be septic. All the lots meet the minimum requirements. Again, one of the things that I've noted in my staff report is making sure that the area, we have lots that are about 4,000 square meters. I think there's one of them, maybe 2 of them. And there's also a buffer. So what the developer's proposing, which is, it's something that I like to see and I think is a good step forward, is that he's proposing to maintain a no-cut, no excavation buffer around the perimeters of the lots, just for privacy and to maintain sort of a green feel to the lots. But it's just making sure that in that usable area that you're taking the 4,000 square meters and then you're adding this buffer, so it's making sure what's left, you can actually put the well, the septic, and the drill well. If that's doable, then obviously the buffers as they're proposed is great. If there needs to be a slight adjustment, that doesn't require PAC approval, because what you're actually approving is the minimum requirements. What you're actually approving is a subdivision plan that meets the minimum requirements of lot width, area, and depth. Stormwater management, obviously a stormwater management plan will be required for this, comprehensive, that looks at ensuring there's a pre and a post balanced flow. So that will look at the receiving infrastructure, obviously culvert across the Model Farm Road. So it's key to look at stormwater attenuation to make sure that it's not going to have any downstream impacts. And if the attenuation gets to a point where it's impractical, then there obviously may have to review further downstream. Land for public purposes, as mentioned, what's proposed, there's I think over 6,000 square meters of land for public purposes proposed. You have 2 larger parcels at the beginning of the subdivision plan that at this point would be probably involved in stormwater attenuation, and Mr. Blaine can probably elaborate on that. But what is also proposed is as I mentioned, a 3-meter strip of LPP that goes all the way back to the Lamprey Road that would obviously at some point look at pedestrian trail development and connectivity through that particular area. One item to note in terms of PAC review and consideration is the Planning Advisory Committee is to look at this plan in terms of what's proposed for LPP and determine whether they feel it's reasonable and desirable and keeping with the intent of the bylaw, of the subdivision bylaw, and the overall functionality of the area and keeping in intent with the active transportation plan and policies of the town. But also in terms of the street. So on the screen, and what I've noted in my staff report is there's, at this stage, a sort of a conceptual design or just some further looking at what's happening in the adjacent properties. And right now, there's a misalignment between the two future streets. So that's something that I've indicated in my staff report that I would, obviously we would like to see addressed at this stage prior to obviously moving forward and the street constructed. The adjacent developer and his team has been made aware of this, and to my understanding, there is some review ongoing to that extent. But obviously, from a planning perspective and final approvals through the development officer and through council, we wouldn't approve a misaligning street. But at some point, at some stage, obviously we can't hold back one developer if he's ready to proceed, and it's sort of it's making people aware, here's the issue, making sure there's opportunity for them to address it and fix it, but then seeing what happens beyond that in terms of approvals. I've indicated just some recommendations in my staff report. That's what this subdivision application that's before PAC covers. I'm open to any questions.
Thanks, Dwight. You would have received the same package we did in mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or the public asking you a few questions?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Planning Advisory Committee, town staff, and members of the community. Thank you for having us here this evening. Again, my name's Matt Blaine on behalf of Hughes Surveys, and we're here tonight again on behalf of MPSF Developments, Inc. So Dwight did a pretty thorough review of the proposal and everything that it contains. So we're not going to spend too much time on that. We've reviewed the staff recommendations, and our client is in agreement with the recommendations provided to you in the staff report, except for recommendation 1. The reason being, Steve has been very diligent moving his development along. He has hired us, Hughes Surveys, very early on, engineering by Houghton, to conduct the design and the stormwater management analysis. He has met with the Department of Environment before staff has raised the concern to iron out any issues before they were even raised. That meeting occurred with the Department of Environment and Local Government back in mid-March. He's also attended a pre-application meeting here with the town just to try and get his development on the right path and moving forward. So with the recommendation from city or town staff, our team has made contact with the adjacent developers team and made several requests for information. We have not received any verification of stormwater management design, excuse me, or engineering that has been done to the current tentative plan provided by this adjacent developer and provided by Kirsty Quigley Roberts. As often is the case, the lot layouts change quite significantly once the stormwater management and engineering is considered, as was the case with our current proposal. So respectfully, we don't think it would make much sense to align our street with a tentative layout of an adjacent property that hasn't underwent the same scrutiny of stormwater design and engineering that ours has. Due to the topography of the land, we anticipate stormwater attenuation being necessary on the adjacent property as it slopes northwesterly towards our proposed site. Due to the information not being provided about stormwater attenuation being considered, we would say that being here tonight in front of you would show our developers importance on moving this ahead. To lose 1 month of prime construction season could be detrimental to the project. It should not be overlooked that the availability of contractors in this market is unpredictable. Someone that may be able to fit you into their schedule now won't necessarily be able to a month or two down the road. So with that in mind, I'd like your decision here to reflect that we're hoping to move forward with this development, and just to keep that in mind, that we're ready to go, and we have the engineering and stormwater design already worked on, and we're hoping to move it ahead.
All right, thank you. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being, is there anyone in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Okay, we have one. Maybe you could take a seat and we'll bring you back up at that time. Could you please state your name for the record, please?
Jerry Roberts, Kirsta and Roberts Limited.
Yes.
Thank you for having me speak on this. You know, we've done the design of the adjacent property. We did an extensive design, not to the tentative plan stage yet, but it was done in, you know, January and March or February and March, and at the time we did this, I submitted it to Dwight for preliminary review and comments on the adjacent part. At the same time, I submitted the plan to you know, to the adjacent properties consultants. And the first I seen that the road wasn't lined up was about 2 weeks ago, when I received this, you know, the preliminary report from Dwight showing the road's not lined up. So the contractor or the developer has been in conversation with the, he'd like to go right ahead. He's done 6 lots now. He'd like to keep it going. And part of the design was coming around the roads with a minimum. By the road in the location that's shown on this tentative plan, we'll lose a lot coming around. There's lots of depth at the back of the lots. We're looking at, you know, depending on the extent of, you know, the stormwater drainage work. He has hired a consultant to do that. We've been, you know, everybody, they're all busy right now, as the other gentleman said. And, you know, he hasn't had, you know, they haven't completed it yet. But we would like, you know, and I've talked with the consultants there, and it's my understanding that they were going to work with us, and before the road went in, that it would be lined up. Or if it isn't lined up, then you know, then it would be, you know, addressed at that time. So at the end of the day on this, you know, I guess, yes, they've done a fair amount of engineering, but usually at a tentative plan stage, you know, you get the concept down first and see that everybody's in agreement with it, then get into the engineering and stormwater management as part of the, you know, the final, you know, design and everything. So anyway, I thought we could work together on it, but obviously they don't seem to want to do that. So, yeah. So I guess I'd like that, you know, from that standpoint, I would like the, you know, PAC members to, you know, go along with the, you know, the development officer's recommendations, and that we work together on the location of the street. Yeah.
Thank you, Jerry.
Any questions?
Any questions? Anyone have any questions for Jerry before we? No? Okay, thanks. Any other members of the public willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time. Any members of the public? Oh. Please state your name for the record, please.
Jacqueline Darling.
With John Foster.
Okay.
We received this letter from the Planning Committee just last week, and we have many concerns. We have at least a dozen questions that we feel haven't been answered. I don't know if you want me to read this letter. It's quite long, but I guess one of our first questions is we'd like to know what your intentions are for this land of public purposes. And I guess you kind of answered that in your statement, that it's for a walking trail. But we have land that's right on this property. and it's been on our family since the early 1900s. And we're worried about how it's going to be policed. We've had issues with four-wheelers already and hunters on our property. So I wonder if you have contacted the Kenmacasas police force and how it will be policed and how regularly. A 3-meter wide trail is just perfect for a wheeler. I'm sure that's not your intention to have it as a wheeler trail, but we're wondering how the landowners adjacent to this trail is going to be protected. And we're wondering, this road hasn't been used for a century. Why does it need to be open now? The original outlet was blocked off by other housing developments and didn't seem to be very important. So I guess our future intentions, we're worried about that. There's old growth forest on each side of the old, we call it the Old Coach Road. You have it the Lambs Ferry Road. And wondering about the impact here as well. We also had a concern about the buffer zone between our property and the building lots in Alpenglow Drive. We're not sure how big that buffer is. I know you mentioned tonight that there's a buffer, but we're not sure how big that is.
I guess a question, and we know this isn't something we do professionally, and we don't know really procedures and process yet. So we were advised to come to the meeting and, gather information and then, go back and consult with maybe legal counsel after. But we're curious as to who actually owns that, who owns the Coach Road, and if the council or if the town of Quispamsis or whoever has the right to reclaim that after this amount of time, because it's certainly not our intention to relinquish any claim at all to the property that boundaries, where our property line is. And so I guess the subdivision, the housing development itself, our main concern is the buffer zone, and it's the second part of it, or the continuation for public use, that we have the most concern with.
We also had a question about who is funding this. Is there an organization behind it, or is this a town of Quispamsis development?
On that map, where was your property would be?
Oh.
Is it on that map, on that drawing or not?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Coming back the other way on the back side. Okay. Okay, yeah, I see that. Yeah, okay, thank you. Dwight, can we answer any of those questions today on that respect to that?
So I guess I'll try to recall, and I don't know if it's any specific order, but sort of the comments. So I'll start with, is this a organization behind it? So what's before PAC and it's been submitted is a private property development owner who wishes to proceed with subdivision of the land in which he owns, which is permitted under the subdivision bylaw and the Community Planning Act. Under the Community Planning Act and the subdivision bylaw says that when somebody subdivides land, they have to either provide 10% of the land being subdivided, or some sort of cash in lieu, or some other arrangement that council may agree to. So in this particular case, as part of the subdivision and a requirement, the town, and in talking with the developer, he's putting forward LPP, land for public purposes, as required by the subdivision bylaw. Okay. So what's being proposed is the land for public purposes will be used for a pedestrian trail or trail connectivity through there. And then where that connects, ultimately the overall plan at this stage, it's a plan, it would be to connect to the old Lansbury Road. So the old Lansbury Road, as shown on the screen, is a public right-of-way. Historically, that obviously from my understanding, the legal jurisdiction lies with the town. So in terms of to what extent that would be developed, it is an old public right-of-way. It has challenging topography, challenging ground. So at this stage, the plan is not to see from that portion down to the Hammond River Road, a actual public street or street construction. It would be basically, if there's anything that were to happen in the future, again, this is a planning perspective, planning exercise, so where we can work with property owners and adjacent property owners to look at acquiring land for a potential trail connection. That's part of this process. So that's in terms of the land use, in terms of how the land's acquired, in terms of policing. Right now, it's private property. Once it becomes a public property, then in terms of policing, the town has the jurisdiction, obviously, to enforce the police side of things and monitor it like we do with other trails throughout the community. So there are the trails throughout the community, throughout the town, where the police are on the trails on bikes. They monitor what goes on. So because it is a public property, then public, in terms of bylaws, kick in. So we would obviously in terms of there's no intent for it to be a AT trail. It's a pedestrian trail if it gets constructed to that stage, and that's what the intent is. In terms of buffering, what's proposed is residential development adjacent to residential development, surrounded by residential development. So under our current zoning bylaws, and there's actually nothing that says that you actually have to have a physical buffer. As you probably can see throughout the town, there are instances where people have residential property backing onto residential property, and any existing trees have been completely cleared. The subdivision bylaw, section 7, says that it's up to council, in terms of council's approval, to what extent they want to see trees retained on the property. So there is a mechanism in the subdivision bylaw that allows council to establish that you either have to preserve trees or you have to plant trees if there's no trees available. So this particular development, and it's interesting, and it's very few that we actually see where the developer is actually proposing buffers around the properties to provide privacy and to maintain a general, treed feel to the lots. So that in itself is something that we don't normally see, and it is a covenant. And as I mentioned in my staff report, because there's a section in the subdivision bylaw, section 7, that says that council can request tree preservation, it could actually be added to the development agreement, which gives a little more force in terms of the town enforcing protection of that particular area. So in this particular case, this particular development is offering covenant protected tree area, and you can't excavate, you can't cut. And then there's an option there. The town, again, can put that in a development agreement, which then would allow the town to actually have a little more enforcement in that particular area as well. Not sure if I answered them all.
Or,
A width for what now, you're saying?
for the buffer.
No, it's on his plan, I believe the applicant can answer those questions after. In terms of a required width, where residential backs onto residential, there is no required buffer from a zoning bylaw subdivision perspective. It's only when you get into commercial or butting onto residential or multi-residential butting onto lower density that you actually get into these buffer areas where you have single family, two family developments abutting to similar use, then there is no buffer required. But in this particular case, like I've said, this developer is offering to incorporate that into his subdivision, which is very pleasing to see.
So do I understand that as of today, there's no intention to extend the land for public purpose beyond what this developer is?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we're working, the way we approach these is when subdivision plans come in, we work within the boundaries and work with the developer or the property owner of the plan that's proposed. So, so this is what's before PAC right now. And like I said, at this stage, it's a planning exercise so that we can acquire the land. What the next steps are and how this will ultimately pan out and become reality, I can't answer that like that's going to happen like beyond a shadow of a doubt. However, we're planning to actually extend the trail at some point in time. When that will happen, again, that's and ultimately a decision of council.
I've been on the Hammond River Park many times, and I've yet to see a policeman on a bicycle.
That's not for us to talk about. You have to bring that up to council or to the town themselves, not the PAC. We don't do that. Thank you. Maybe, can we get the applicant back up now? Thank you. Maybe the applicant can address, if they want to, any of the concerns. Like the buffer, your question about buffers, I think that was shown in the plan that was sent out, the proposed buffers.
Through you, Mr. Chair, on the proposed tentative plan that we sent out, we had a couple different widths for buffers, and as you mentioned, they're not typically a requirement, but the developer appreciates and would like to keep a very nice tree buffer around each of the lots so that there isn't any development like we've mentioned.
And that's the proposed buffers up there in the left-hand screen, correct?
Correct. So we at this time, there isn't a tentative or a plan drawn up for the extension all the way up to Lamps Ferry Road. Assuming the same developer would be here when that extension happens, I would assume a likewise general buffer would be included in it because just to keep things consistent within the development and to keep everything flowing, I would anticipate similar buffers to what you see on this plan. In terms of a buffer from the actual property on the other side of Lamps Ferry Road, I believe Lamps Ferry Road is designated as a 20-meter wide, approximately, public right-of-way. So there will be that 20-meter buffer that we aren't in control of as the developer. That is public lands. And then in addition, if there is also a buffer on the property, 10 meters is pretty standard here on our existing tentative. That would be, somewhere in the range of 30 meters between the buffer that we'd be creating, including the Lamps Ferry Road, before you get to the adjacent property owner.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions for the applicant? Could you please come up and state your name for the record, please?
My name's Aaron Keating. I own the property at 321 Model Farm Road, which is just down from the development. I'm just concerned about stormwater runoff and how they plan to mitigate that or keep it at the same levels it is today.
Okay, thank you. I believe that'll be taken care of in the stormwater management plan. Once that's developed, we're talking about a tentative plan here today, so come on back up. No further questions. Oh, go ahead, Dwight, sorry.
So just to further up on that, so part of the requirement is to submit a comprehensive stormwater management plan. So this comprehensive stormwater management plan, as I mentioned, looks at existing infrastructure, culverts downstream, and then that's sort of the jumping off point. So then you would run an analysis that looks at what is the volume of water and flows that are happening in a 1 to 100 year storm, and to see when it runs through that pipe, what's going to happen. And if it's causing downstream impacts, then you have to step back and say, how can we hold back that water to not cause downstream impacts? And that's when you get into stormwater attenuation. Stormwater attenuation is usually things like you see ponds, detention ponds that hold water for a small period of time, maybe 24 to 36 hours, and then it slowly drains and it dissipates. Good stormwater management engineering practices always has in some level of above and beyond. So you're looking at maybe a safety factor, if you will. In some cases, that's like 1 in 100 years plus 20%. when you start factoring in some things like climate change and things like that. So it is a you know, it is an engineering practice, it's an engineering science that goes behind this, and then we look at all those factors, and that all has to be submitted and reviewed by the town.
Thank you, Dwight. I believe Brent Preston has a question.
Question for the applicant. Regards to lot 2106 and the adjacent road, the adjoining road from the adjacent subdivision, what's the implications of moving your future street to a line, basically ending up with 2106 becoming a bigger lot by about 15 meters?
At this point, I guess, as you can see, there's two parcels kind of close to the entrance off Model Farm Road that are proposed designated as lands for public purposes to account for stormwater attenuation. So we're planning to deal with that at the lowest point there, and before it ends up going out, crossing the street and impacting anyone else. So with that configuration in mind, we've set up with the developer's advice what he would like to create in terms of lot configuration. The problem isn't working, I guess, with the adjacent property owner and developer and aligning the streets, and we are open to doing that, and we have been trying to work with that. I guess the point I was trying to make is that we had the engineering and the stormwater management analysis done and placed our street at a local low point so that the lands up above that are draining to there, it would make sense due to a natural topographical feature to cross there along where our street is located. The problem being that if we move our street now to match into that other street and we postpone this a month, then once the other side, the developer, if they complete their stormwater management and they decide that they need a pond further down and they end up having to shift their proposed lots to deal with the stormwater management, then we'll have to wait again and shift ours back. So I guess with our proposal being further ahead and having that done at this point to a point where it would work, then we're hoping that the other stormwater management will in turn require some amendments to their proposal, and with that they would be able to align with our street.
Okay, but based on the two plans we have sitting here in front of us today, they're not in alignment. So my question is there a financial impact or is there a land impact to your development if you have to move it 15 meters?
I guess through you, Mr. Chair, it would be the same impact whether you lose a lot later on or you.
But the 15 meters makes that lot 70 meters, which is based in a line, which is smaller than the lot across the road, which is 80 meters.
Right, but further up the development. So I guess adding extra land at any point is going to take land away from future development. So I guess the same being some of the lots on the adjacent property are larger than they need to be. For example, the corner lot there, if that's going to be used for stormwater management and everything needs to be adjusted, then it'll be changed anyway. So I guess the reason the road is in the place where it is for our tentative proposal is due to the topographical features of the land, and that's where it made sense to have a connection point for this development.
I'm not trying to argue with you, but basically, we're talking a difference of 15 meters probably from your road to their road. I don't think the topographical changes can't be that much from their subdivision to your subdivision in that short a distance, am I right?
No, I guess the slope would be coming down to the west, and as you get there, it would be a low point, so somewhere where the water could come into and cross over. So that would make, I guess, the most sense topographically.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair. So one thing I want to clarify, again, the reason this was brought to PAC's attention is because from a planning perspective, when we have tentative plans or even conceptual plans, we use our GIS system to bring it all in to look at how all this was fit together. So the thing to keep in mind is The plan that's before PAC right now is a tentative plan with an application submitted with a timeline for approval. The adjacent property, which we use, again, from a planning perspective to see how this will line up, to my knowledge, is a conceptual plan. So it's my understanding that the applicant that MPSF has gone through the engineering side of things and did their stormwater analysis and aligned things accordingly, whereas below it's conceptual. So again, from a planning perspective, when we have developers or adjacent properties that are looking to develop, we try to say, let's, collaborate, work together to make sure everything lines up. So at this stage, the tentative plan is an application that's submitted with the time ticking for approval. The one below at this stage, to my knowledge, that I haven't received is conceptual.
Thanks, Dwight. Brenda?
Just a quick question, and I don't know who answered that. It's only that one lot that is impacted by where that future street is going to be? Lot 21-6?
I guess from a similar standpoint, it might be one lot that gets amended on this tentative plan or final plan, but it would be the overall remnant and everything that gets moved with it as well. So,
But the future street is only trying to line up with that section of the future street, like right there. But could you, I guess, can you approve the plan with conditions except for that one lot? Because that might be where the road changes, the future street.
through you, Mr. Chair. So I think to echo Dwight that this is at the tentative stage. So nothing's finalized, nothing's permanent.
Right.
So the street may and very well could be adjusted and moved from the final plan. I guess it's where it makes sense with the two developments and with the stormwater management and where the water is going to flow and where the topographical features allow. Sliding the road, you can make it so it only impacts, I guess you can say, one lot, but like I said, it's the remnant and what's left over. If you go all the way up to Lambs Ferry Road, if you're 10 meters short at the end of it because you moved 15 meters over now, then you would lose a lot at the end because of you moving it here at this point.
I know what you're saying, but we have to figure a way to get the two surveyors working together.
Yeah.
Brenda, I think we have an answer for that. I can and Dwight can, maybe too. Go ahead, Dwight.
So what it comes down to, and so the question that needs to be answered is how were the two roads established, future connection streets? So was the one, and based on the information that we have and based on the tentative plan, the proposed location from MPSF is based on an engineering that looked at the topography, looked at the lowest area. This is the best location for the connection of the road in terms of the road connection, in terms of stormwater management, in terms of overall functionality. So then that same question gets flipped to the conceptual plan to say, has that location based on engineering stormwater design that's been done? Or is it based on lot layout, possible best in terms of laying out the lots, distances from a curve, or is it based on stormwater management that's been done? Right? And from what we heard tonight from Mr. Roberts was, at this stage, there's been some looking at it, but to the same extent it hasn't been done. So it may be that a full engineering stormwater management needs to be done on the adjacent property to say, yeah, there is an actual need for adjustment, or it can be moved to accommodate it. Hope that clarifies through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, Dwight, so it's safe to say that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the one we're talking about tonight is a tentative plan that's been submitted. The bottom development has not been submitted for a tentative plan. It was a conceptual plan only. Is that correct?
It's a conceptual plan that, yeah, you know, in terms of, as we always recommend to any developer, please come and sit with planning and we'll go over, you know, all the aspects that you need to look at and consider when you're doing your design. And a part of that would be laying out of the streets in accordance with, you know, the topography of the land, the stormwater and those types of things, so.
And saying that, PAC has the ability to set recommendations to ensure that when the final plans are completed, that they both line up. Okay, with saying that, is any members of PAC willing to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Oh, you got a question? Please come up, state your name. I had asked for comments and you didn't come up, so I didn't know.
Stephen Forgeron.
Yep,
I'm the president of MPSF Development.
yep.
The subdivision. I want to thank the committee and the people who have come to speak with their concerns. I have been informed by listening to the land and trying to protect the water, primarily as my motivation. It's not an easy process, and I do want to work with the developer adjacent, but time is of the essence. And when you listen to the land and you do the engineering and you look at it, there's a natural place. We can wiggle and jiggle, but that is where the land tells you it should be. So I just wanted to offer that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that comment. No, Jerry, we're done comments on that behalf for now, we're in the motion stage. We're in the motion stage, Jerry. We had all comments addressed at this point. Would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? Brent?
I'll make the recommendation. PAC recommend the MPSF Incorporated Subdivision Phase 2 and conditions of approval, including,
Can you move the mic closer there, Brent?
yeah, let the PAC support the overall street layout. 2, approve a 2-meter street right-of-way with variance. 3, support for the land for public purposes proposed by the tender plan with the 2,073 square meter deficit to be addressed in a future phase. 4, support for an abbreviated water source and supply assessment, recognizing this is not a requirement based on the proposed number of lots in the subdivision bylaw criteria. An on-site septic approval is required by the Provincial Health Act, and the following standard conditions will be applied to possible approval by the plan by the Planning Development Officer.
Can I have a seconder on that? Darren? Oh. Go ahead.
I'll second that.
On the question, please vote, please.
It's up there on the thing. Try again. On my screen.
It's not there? Okay, we'll just go down through.
Try one more time. Showing up?
No. Brenda?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Brent voted for it. So with that, motion carried with a 5-0 vote. Next 5 to 7 business days, you'll have your letter in the mail with approval. So please work with the town and the neighbors and the associated lot to get that road lined up. And please make sure all necessary documents are signed and filed. So congratulations and best of luck. Yeah, if anyone's item's up, they don't have to stay, so. We'll move on to item 7C. And item 7C is Cover Bridge Estates Phase 4, Bridgewood Drive. Could,
Leave them for the next one. Can I just double check with the folks? No.
we got a, no, it's right here. Okay. Please come up and state your name for the record, then we'll get Dwight to introduce the topic, please.
On behalf of Riverfront Properties Limited, the developer of this project.
Thank you. Dwight?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you to the PAC members. Again, a subdivision application has been submitted to the town. It is before the PAC as there is a small variance that's required, 0.28 meters on the lot width of lot lot 24. The other item is regarding that both lot 24 and 25 are constrained by a 30-meter buffer with respect to the Bader Brook. Recognizing that a subdivision plan doesn't trigger a WAWA, it's the actual development that happens on the lot. So once you start cutting trees or you get into excavation of soils, and that's when it triggers the WAWA. Based on obviously the subdivision plan, there's a note on the plan that reflects that actually says that any work on these lots will have to require a WAWA. So it's before PAC to obviously have that as support in terms of a recommendation that's already been incorporated in the plan, but to make sure PAC has an opportunity to consider that, as well as to grant a lot width variance of 0.28 meters or less than a foot. So again, my staff report, I've just highlighted some things. Access to these lots will obviously come off of Bridgeford Drive because there is no street or access, even though the area between the two lots is being presented and reserved for a potential future street. We'd have, the access at this point in time in terms of access and civic numbering and those types of things would be off Bridgeford. Again, as the plan indicates on the screen, there's some blue area that runs through the lot. So as part of that WAWA process, obviously, if there's some reconfiguration of the streams or the drainage through there, then that would fall under the Department of Environment. Just like I noted in the previous application, one of the things I want to point out is the lot. I think is lot 24. You're in the 4,000 square meter range. One of the things that we've been made aware of recently is with respect to these lots in rural areas on septic and well in the house, we have to ensure that the usable area of the lot. So when you take that 4,000 square meters and then you have an area that's constrained by the 30-meter buffer, that sort of reduces what may be the usable area. You may be able to put a well in there and your septic may go elsewhere. So it's just making sure that within that usable area outside of the constraint, you can still actually do the septic, the well, and the house. So that's something to keep in mind. The other thing I've noted in my staff report, and this will be common across most of the plans moving forward in rural areas, is that it's 4,000 square meters, which based on the NB technical guidelines for on-site septic systems, that's equivalent to a 3-bedroom house. So we've had some concerns raised recently regarding that, plans that have been submitted for 4,000 square meters, which based on the guidelines is a 3-bedroom house. And then when they go through the building permit stage, the plans are showing 4 and 5-bedroom houses squeezing onto a 4,000 square meter lot. So again, it's not the town's jurisdiction to issue those permits, but from a planning perspective, we have to recognize it and put it as an item that must be considered. Obviously, if the developer or property owner goes to the Department of Public Safety, and they present their plans, and it's a 4-bedroom house, and they get their permit, then obviously that's been approved by them. But as part of this process, we have to recognize it. So I'm bringing that as attention sort of in my staff report. But again, tonight for PAC, it's the reviewing of the variance, and then support for the, obviously, the recommendation to have to go through the Department of Environment for a wall, which has been noted on the plan. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dwight. You would have received the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of the PAC or public asking you any questions? Perfect. Any members of PAC have any questions for the applicant? None being, is there anyone in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Is there anyone in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, is there anyone in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? None being, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please?
I'll put a motion forward that PAC approve the Covered Bridge Estates Phase 4 tentative subdivision plan that should include the following terms and conditions. 1, granting of a 0.28 meter lot width variance for lot 24. 2, a requirement for the access to lot 24-25 to be from Bridgeford Drive and being at least 11 meters from the side property line, common with the area identified on the plan as reserved for a future street. 3, an on-site septic approval from the Department of Public Safety as per Provincial Health Act and New Brunswick technical guidelines for on-site sewage disposal systems. 4, potable water supply and service through privately owned drilled well as per Clean Water Act, New Brunswick potable water regulations, NB 93-203. 5, a stormwater and lot grading plan to be submitted at the time of the building permit application stage. It shall include a lot grading plan for lot 24 and 25. 6, LPP obligations to be satisfied prior to the final plan approvals. 7, filing fees of the amount of $100 for a subdivision plan of 2 lots. And 8, final plan to be signed by the property owners and any applicable public utilities.
Can I have a seconder on that? Brent, I believe you're up. Okay. All in favor, please vote. It's not coming up, so we'll go down through. Brenda?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Motion carried. 5-0. Next 5 business days, you have a letter in the mail. Best of luck, and please work with the town, get necessary documentation signed and organized. Thank you very much. Bye-bye. Go on to item 7D, Gondola Point Park Phase 12, tentative subdivision plan. Could the applicant please come up to state their name for the record? And in the meantime, Dwight, can you introduce the topic, please?
Roberts?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to PAC. Subdivision application submitted to the town, currently under review. The development officer, again, because the proposed plan is proposing the creation of a extension of an existing public street, 2 public streets, and requires LPP consideration. It is before the Planning Advisory Committee. So as part of the process for reviewing this application, PAC would look at the overall street configuration and how it connects to existing streets and the overall functionality and access to adjacent properties or adjacent lands. And then from an LPP perspective, as I've noted in my staff report, the LPP contributions for this particular phase were covered under Phase 9, previous phase. with the granting of a parcel of land for which right now the Great Trail traverses. It's by the Matthews Cove and currently highlighted on the screen. So there was a land bank credit that by the developer vesting that parcel of land to the town, provided them with a credit that could cover what is required under this LPP. So as LPP review, PAC would have to make a recommendation or support the use of that credit, or if they feel there should be additional LPP lands obtained, then obviously that would be PAC's authority to make that decision and recommendation. In terms of the overall subdivision, streets connects to existing Sheraton, so it's going to be an extension up to Matty Lane. Obviously, all the properties will be providing access off of those streets. No lot widths are required, no right-of-way widths are required because it's typical 20 meters. All the lots meet the zoning bylaw requirements in terms of area, size, depth. They will be serviced by sanitary sewer, on-site drilled wells. Comprehensive water study was done for the previous phase, phase 9, and it did take in a portion of this area. Again, as in this particular case, it's below the threshold for a comprehensive study, but PAC can, if they feel an abbreviated study is warranted. Again, but a comprehensive was done previously. From a planning perspective, one of the reasons why we would be possibly looking at an abbreviated study is since the comprehensive study was completed, a multi-residential apartment building was constructed. There was a comprehensive study done for that indicated there was sufficient water to support that level of development, but it's an opportunity to just see the overall general yields and capacity in that area. Stormwater management plan obviously will be required, comprehensive, as part of the standard process in this particular case. The tentative plan that was submitted actually shows 2 areas that were indicated as wetlands, and you can see the areas on the screen. They're in I guess a darker green color. In May of this year, the developer sought clarification from the Department of the Environment with respect to if these wetlands were actually on the ground. So what was mapped, this is reflective of the province's wetland mapping. And then there was some questions of whether the accuracy and validity of it. So there was an on-site review, and we have received correspondence that indicates that that there's updates happening, okay, because that the wetland delineation doesn't reflect what the mapping is. So notice was sent to residents in the area. Some of the concerns that were received were with respect to traffic, the increase in traffic. As I mentioned in my staff report, there is a transportation master plan that has currently been started. It's a project that's been supported by council, so we're at part of A of that. And then ultimately, if we move forward with part B, we will see a transportation master plan. Part of that is looking at certain areas of the town that will look at how do you provide the best connectivity. And as I mentioned in my staff report, this is one area that we'll examine in terms of getting a connection from this particular area down to the Means Cove Road. And as I mentioned in my staff report again, this developer, Mr. Scott, has been active. We've met on a couple of occasions, including Mr. Roberts, to discuss how is that possible and what can happen. A bit of a challenge, as I mentioned, is just the change in elevation. So you're looking at street grade, and there's some rock outcrops that need to be addressed through there as well. But there is, as I mentioned, a plan where we're looking at to actually make that connectivity to take the load off of some of the additional streets moving forward when this lot gets further developed. There were some concerns I mentioned about the traffic on Matthews. We did do study in May of this year, and in my staff report, I did a quick analysis to show the actual change in traffic with the addition of the multi-residential or the apartment building. The increase was about 50 vehicles per day. So one of the things that we need to keep in mind, both from a planning perspective and engineering perspective. And when we review these, the Transportation Association of Canada, or TAC, actually classifies these streets, and a local street in this particular area, its classification, it's anticipated that they're designed for about 1,000 vehicles per day. Okay, that's the design, and that's how they're classed in terms of a local street. So in this particular area, the full traffic study was done over 5 days, where we've seen a total of 786 vehicles over that 5-day period. So in terms of the volume of traffic, obviously we recognize there's going to be some additional traffic, but we'll be looking at how that sort of navigates through the area. You know, we would anticipate people would be going down, I guess, to get to Quispamsis Road and then down to the Ganola Point Road. So at this stage, we're not anticipating any significant increase in traffic. As mentioned in my staff report as well, is the town does have a traffic calming policy program. So if residents feel that this area, you know, there should be some further investigation, then that program is open with a written request through council, and then council directs it to the engineering staff to look at this particular area. So I think that about covers the items I had in my staff report, and I'm open to questions.
Thank you, Dwight, for that informative information. Mr. Roberts, you would have received the same package we did. Anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or the public asking some questions?
I don't think so. I think Dwight hit it pretty good.
Okay, thank you. Any questions from PAC to the applicant? None being, is there anyone in the audience willing to speak for or against? Could you please come up and state your name for the record, please?
Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. My name is, I go by Fred Stillwell, but it's James, I guess, on the, James Frederick.
Okay.
I've lived on Kane Road, at 21 Kane Road, since 2007. And I'd first like to say that when we moved to Kane Road, our house was the last house before some years later it got punched through to Matthews Drive. And a couple of things that I want to say. One is 1,000 vehicles a day is what you're trying to say to me on a little country road, which was Kane Road, that I would be able to put up with 1,000 vehicles a day? That's ludicrous in my mind. I don't live in Montreal on a side road, and I don't live in Toronto. I live in Quispamsis, New Brunswick. And we had no traffic. I mean, when it was a dead-end street, we had zero traffic. And now, with Matthews Drive and all of the houses that are there and the condo development, it's a lot of traffic every day. And you mentioned, you know, an increase of 50 vehicles. Well, that's twice a day. They go and then they come back. And it's a lot of traffic. And so that's one of the concerns that I have with this development, that it's going to be a lot more traffic. But that's not my main concern. I also want to say that the speed limit on that road is wrong. It's too fast. It's 50 kilometers an hour. It doesn't sound like it, but you know, I'm sure you've done your traffic data. I can tell you, I'm retired, I'm home every day, and there's a lot of speeding on that road. And this Kane Road has a number of new families over the last few years, and there's a lot of young children on that road, and it is of great concern to me. However, I guess in addition, I feel like in the last 4 or 5 years that we are living in a construction site. The truck traffic, the excavators, the well drillers, it's punishing. It's just punishing to have these trucks back and forth on Kane Road. That's the only one they use. That's the connector road to Matthews Drive and up to that development. And while that development was going on, it was unbelievable. unbelievable, the traffic, the noise, the smells, the dirt. It's just terrible. I really feel like I've lost, and that we on Kane Road have lost a quality of life. It's gone, and it's very sad for me. And this is just going to be more. It's going to be more truck traffic. I spoke to one of the construction people, the truckers, and they had last year or the summer before 8 trucks a day excavating and filling. I don't know what the heck they were doing, but they were constantly back and forth on Little Kane Road, back and forth. And I was in touch with staff here about this, and we've put up with this now for 5 years or 6 years, every summer, every day, including Saturdays from 8 a.m. till 7 p.m. at night. You can't be out in your yard, on your deck, enjoying with that kind of traffic. You just can't do it. And so I was in touch with staff, and I mean, I asked that the trucks and the heavy equipment be not permitted to use Kane Road. I wanted them to come down the collector roads, the main arteries, Quispamsis Road for one, down to Gondola Point Road, and then up to Matthews Drive. Like, get off this little street. Those other roads are built for that kind of traffic. Well, that couldn't happen. I mean, the guy laughed at me, not the staff, but the truck company. They wouldn't even consider it. And so, 2 things that I want to suggest, and that would be one of them, that the town consider not allowing truck traffic and heavy equipment on Kane Road. Make them go down to the bottom of Quispamsis Road and along Gondola Point Road. Otherwise, build the connector road to Means Cove. Why isn't that the first thing that happens? Build that connector road to Means Cove Road. That would solve all those problems. It would take all of the traffic, because right now, everybody uses Kane Road. Everybody up there on Matthews Drive and in that subdivision, they all use Kane Road, and it's a lot of traffic, despite what I've heard. So, get that road built. And I know it's a big job, but I think it's only fair. I mean, it's been, I swear to God, you can't imagine. It's been years that we've dealt with this every single summer. It's just a constant nuisance. So there. I think that's all I have to say. I'm also concerned about my private well. You know, I know other people have expressed this concern about the water tables, and of course I'm concerned about that. I'm on a private well, and I'm also concerned about the wetland issue, and I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any others in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Could you please state your name for the records, please?
Jones.
Jennifer Ramsey and
Sean Jones.
Sean Jones? Okay.
Robert probably goes by Sean.
Okay. Oops, sorry, hang on here. We gotta.
Sorry.
That's okay. Actually, we have a lot of the same concerns as Fred, I believe, as Fred had. We actually live on Matthews Drive, and especially since the condos have gone in, we've seen an increased amount of traffic, unbelievable, as he said, and the speed is ridiculous. People are not following the 50 kilometers an hour. They must be going at least 70. I think I've seen some people go 80. I've contacted the police multiple times. They've come out, and it just seems that whenever they're there, they never catch anybody. We have a young son. He's going to be 4 in November. And as much as we try to be those helicopter parents around him in the yard to protect him, there's that fear that when people are going that fast, there's nothing. If he got away from us for a second, there's nothing we could do. They wouldn't be able to stop. We've put a hedge. Like I say, we've contacted the police. We put a little slow sign out and nothing. So now we're concerned that with it being connected, Sheridan being connected to Maddie Drive as well, that not only are people going to be coming down Kane Road to fly up our road to the condos, but that now some are going to be taking Sheridan Avenue as well. And we live on the corner lot of Matthews and Sheridan. So we would be getting even more traffic. So we were hoping that the town would consider not only reducing the speed limit from 50 kilometers an hour to 40 kilometers an hour, but also adding some speed bumps in the area. I've been through other subdivisions that have speed bumps, and while I know some people are not going to appreciate them, I very much do, and I didn't find them to be too much of an inconvenience. When you're going in a subdivision that has young families, I think that should be expected, and that you need to go slow, and that would just be a wonderful addition if the town would consider doing that with the new homes being built, as well as we believe there's even the possibility of another condo building being built. Another one that we had was the well water as well, and I was wondering if a test had been done, but where you said a comprehensive test had been done in phase 9, we would like for another one to be done because we want to make sure that the pre-existing homes can be supported by the well, as well as the new homes and the potential for the new condos. That's a really big concern for us. This is on behalf of a neighbor who wanted to come, but they have a young family as well and weren't able to make it. They wanted to make sure that these would be single-family homes rather than they didn't want to make sure that they weren't going to be another condo building, or that these were single-family homes and no more condo buildings, and that the drainage would be addressed. But I think I overheard you guys saying that the drainage was going to be,
Sure.
I think. And also for us, we wanted to know when construction will start and how long it will be, and will it be the houses being built to sell, or will you be building as the lots sell? So I think that's about it. And then, and the wetlands, where you're saying they're in the process of being either classified as wetlands or reclassified as not. What will happen if they are? Will that entire area become off limits to construction, or will it just be the lots that are considered wetland? And yes, but thank you. I think that's about it.
Well, and we're obviously very concerned about the construction traffic as well, just like the previous gentleman, that, you know, we had to deal with it for like you
years.
said, 5 to 7 years. And
with the condos.
it was every day,
Constant.
all day,
Dump
including
trucks,
the
just
weekends.
on always.
We're also worried because now they just paved the road and there's going to be all this construction on it, so it's, you know.
Yeah, and we agree with the man who spoke before that the road going from Means Cove Road should be the one that's built first before any more development takes place. We've purchased homes in that area because it was a well-established subdivision, and I understand that this has been zoned for a subdivision for quite a while, but that to have that road built would just, I think that would be the best thing for everybody. I know that the people building the homes might not think so, but for the homeowners in the area. So,
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the information. No further members of the public. Jerry, you may want to come back up. I'm not sure you want to address any of those, or I can get Dwight to talk about a few, but.
I'm just gonna put that down for a minute. I'm by myself here. Certainly the, the connection to the Means Cove Road is very high on Scott Brothers' list, for sure. We've done a fairly extensive design of what could possibly happen for the remainder of the subdivision over the winter, and we haven't taken it to the tentative plan stage yet, mainly because the challenges of the road getting down, like Dwight had mentioned, the contours and whatnot. Do you have that on, that map there on your screen at all, Dwight? Okay, I don't know whether we can, any sense of even projecting it through, but it does show that, certainly the connection, at least at this point, would have Sheraton coming down and making its way to the Meanings Cove Road. Dwight asked, what was the timing on it? So Ron Scott couldn't be here tonight. He must be away because I was away last week, but I've been trying to get a hold of him since yesterday to see if he was coming. But I had asked him that question on timing for the road. He said, to a certain point, a lot, this connecting this street through and then, to Maddie, then the next phase of it would be from the intersection of Maddie and Sheraton down to, towards the Meanings Cove Road. He realizes that it's important. We've been, we were through it with Kane Road, with the extension of Kane Road through to Matthews. There was a lot of people that were concerned at the time, but it was something that was done, and I don't know whether there's any more traffic in there or not, but I'm sure what Mr. Stillwell said, with the truck traffic going through to the apartment building, I'm sure has been the case. But when I did speak with Ron about the road going down, he said, obviously the economy is going to affect it, but the economy has this year is, so far it's been starting to be quite a busy summer. The economy's come back over the last 10 years, even quite significantly, at least 5 years. But he thought 3 years. He obviously doesn't want to be committed to that, but he thought, from a realistic standpoint, if he worked towards 3 years of getting that road down through there, that he would do it. It's going to involve, there's a couple of major rock outcrops down in there that, and the steep grades that will need to be addressed. And I was interested to see about the, I wasn't aware of the, the street study that was being done by the town. But, that's a good portion of it to see if our, let them take a, crack at our plan and see if it can be tweaked or worked around or it's good or whatever. But, certainly we do have the, the basis of what we're thinking anyway right now. And the major, like I said, major part of it all will be the connection to the Meanings Cove Road, and Scots are well aware of it. And, they're going to work towards it, so for sure. So with, we can, PAC members have any questions, we'll address that in a second. But the other thing was the wetlands issue. I put the map on, showing the on GeoNB, it shows the wetlands on the maps, and that's what a lot of the basis is people use when they have a look at it. Now, what's even gone farther is, it's been a great tool, is the tool the town of Quispamsis has. Sometimes you look at it and you think there's a river or a stream, a major river in your backyard, but it's just reflecting that it's high water table, and as you're aware. But it's a great tool for planning purposes. But I did put the what was shown as it's certainly an official map showing where the wetlands were and the buffer around it on the tentative plan. But there was a meeting. We had a meeting with Department of Environment. Probably, I'm not going to say a month ago, but it's probably right after the the water dried up and it could be examined with some integrity. But they've remapped it, and I just got the map back a couple of days ago, and I think you were carboned on it, Dwight, and it takes that wetlands right out of there. It takes the piece out over on Sheraton, and it takes out the piece between Sheraton and Erin, takes it right out of there. Because when we walked it and we said, we just couldn't understand, you know, how the wetland was. But the girl from, the biologist from Fredericton come down, and she took her shots, she walked it, she said, yes, this is definitely not right. So she has remapped it and sent us, she carboned me on it and carboned Dwight on it, you know, her revisions. And there's still a wetland, but it's up close to the apartment building and on the back, say, of the lots fronting on Aaron. But it's, you know, it's the lots on Aaron, on the extension Aaron on the east side, the buffer is affecting the lots, but the wetland certainly isn't. So, you know, if there's a buffer there, it would take a permit to do any excavation where the wetland or the buffer zone is, but it's certainly not wetland. But as you approach the apartment buildings, the second apartment building may very well be affected in some fashion by it, at least, you know, from an investigation standpoint anyway. So, but the wetland, a lot of that on the plan can be erased. But I did put it on because we hadn't got the official, you know, report back from environment at the time. But as far as the road goes, if anybody's got any questions, certainly, you know, I'm willing to address it for sure.
So Jerry, your plan will be updated. We're only approving a tentative plan, so any
Right.
future plans will be updated with the proper wetland identified and the buffer zone on that?
Yes, and there will be no, nothing shown on our final plan of this because it'll be, it's basically eliminated. We have the
buffer also?
The buffers, yeah. Anything on this, on Sheraton's gone.
Okay.
It's up on Aaron, like on the south side, you might point to it, Dwight. Those first few lots kind of on the east or southeast of Aaron, down that area, the backs of those lots would be affected by the buffer, and then the wetlands below that again. So it's, it's not really not on that, it won't be on that part of it at all. Like you could take that, wipe it right off that plan, and there would be no wetland.
Thank you. Dwight, any clarifications or anything you need there from what Jerry was talking about, or anything we need to add prior to questions from PAC?
Just a comment on in terms of traffic and speeds. Ultimately, those are decisions of council, so anything with terms of speed reductions, that would have to go through council. And in terms of traffic calming practices, would have to go through council. Those are the ones that would make that decision and reflect it in the area. And just to, I know the gentleman mentioned all the truck traffic coming down Kane Road and then going down, they should be put on the collector roads of Quispamsis Road and Gondola Point Arterial. And we do examine that when developments come to us, the best way to get truck traffic in. Part of the problem with this one is you send them down Quispam Kane Road, then they're coming back up through Matthews on the other end, so you're still putting them back onto a local road. So it's balancing that particular situation. So again, anything to do with traffic in terms of speed limits and traffic calming, those questions or those concerns would be directed to council. And ultimately, council is the ones that make the final decision in terms of giving assent to the final plan before I can stamp it and sign it and get it registered. So,
Thanks, Dwight. Any members of PAC have any more questions for applicant? Member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with sorry, Darren, go ahead.
I have a question. So there's 16 lots in this phase. What's the next phase after this, Jerry? What is it? Is there a tentative? There's got to be something that's drawn up. I guess the reason I'm asking that question is that a big concern is the road going down onto the Means Cove Road. So when is that going to happen? So we approved these 16 lots. What's coming up after that? Is my question. Mm-hmm.
Just to give you an idea, or you know, even members of the the public wanted to see it, I can take it around. This is kind of a worksheet, but there's Sheraton right there, and making this connection in here with Maddie. So his, and that's one, he's going to work from here down. But as you can see on my map, there's some, constraints. A big major knob of rock there. It's almost like someone's been to a big pile of rock there and, by the solid rock person in there. So and we looked at possibly taking, approaching this fellow and either buying that lot or taking a corner off of it, so the road could come down maybe and get around the rock in here. But when these lines are very, very close together, each one of those is a meter. So, that is quite a steep area right in there. And, certainly needs to be addressed. But no matter where you come down through here, it's going to be bad. Now, we had talked before, and Dwight had suggested, possibly maybe this could come down and come out and hit Cardinal and go down. Ron's very concerned with that because of the, not the flat, but the concerns that he's very aware of the concerns that people have had on Kane Road, and it's not like he's trying to shy away from it by any means. He is concerned, he wants to address it. He feels that if it goes over to, if they make arrangements to buy the land or get the land over to, I'm very concerned with that. He's just gonna have that much more people in the houses over there that are going to be, concerns that he's very concerned. So his thoughts are, is try to get it out through here, trying to shy away from it, try to get it out. So it was, to answer Darren's question, probably what would happen there would be,
16 lots and then the next.
He's working toward me and Cove, is that what you're saying? That's what we're looking for. I don't need to see it, Jerry. They might, the members of the public, you guys need to see it? Brent, you need to see it?
Going back towards, like over the back, I guess, is what he's not gonna go down.
Can we do that? It's okay to show that?
16 lots and then the next.
He's working toward me and Cove, is that what you're saying? That's what we're looking for. I don't need to see it, Jerry. They might, the members of the public, you guys need to see it? Brent? Yes, Brent? You need to see it? Yes, you will. Hang on.
Towards, like over the back, I guess, is what he's.
Couldn't be doing that. Can we do that?
The lines are very close together, so you need to get this onto a line. So this area right in here, very steep, but it's doable. I mean, it's.
Okay, Jerry, can you show it to the members of the public? We're dragging on, that's all, so.
Maybe have a look at it. You want to have a look at on here?
The question. How
Yeah.
many more?
Okay. Let's see.
And the
There's
timeline.
There's Aaron right there. So we're hooking up Aaron down to Maddie, right in here.
So Aaron would be hooked up?
Not Aaron, excuse me, Sheraton, down to Maddie. Okay.
Will it ever be hooked up to Aaron? Because that would help cut down on the traffic as well on that.
See, this here map shows that. It hasn't been major formal yet, but it comes down like this. So really what they would want to do then is head down through here with this road. And it might, the economy, and that's where Ron said 3 years, if he.
The economy, he's building many houses and condo buildings. I think he should be working with the road in.
Ron's not.
Yeah, we can't talk about that. He's just showing you the
He's
plan.
not even
That's
build,
it.
he
Then
might
we're-
build a half dozen houses
Yeah.
a year right now. So anyway, this is, what they're heading for is this, and he's quite aware of the concerns, because when he did Kane Road, he had a lot of concerns at the time, and he's very concerned with it. So he's working towards this, and that's where I came up with and asked him the time frame, and he threw 3 years. He said, if the economy makes it work down through it, because this is going to be a very expensive road to build, but if he can make it down through here, it would be his.
Okay, we're good. We'll move on. Jerry, thanks. With that being said, would any further, would a member of PAC like to put a motion for or against with terms and conditions, please? John, you're up.
Yeah, I'll put a motion forward. The PAC recommend, number one, approving the proposed street layout and connection. Two, supporting the use of the LPP land credit established as part of Phase 9 to fulfill the LPP requirements for Phase 12. However, identifying the need for additional green space and trail connections to continue as part of the Gondola Point Park development. And three, supporting the requirement for an abbreviated water source and supply assessment with a comprehensive to be completed in the next phase.
Thanks, John. Can I have a seconder for that? Brenda?
I'll second that.
On the question, can we please vote, please? Yeah, well, sorry, Mark had a question.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, to you here. Mrs. Stillwell mentioned that there was traffic on traveling on Saturday. Is that the bylaw doesn't approve construction on a weekend, am I correct to say that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, the noise bylaw permits construction Monday to Saturday. Sunday, you don't have construction.
Saturday included?
Not Sunday, you can on Sunday. Saturday, you can.
Hours.
It's to 9 o'clock at night, I believe.
I'm just trying to find a way, Jerry, to minimize the impact of the local 7 days, 6 days a week. And I don't know, 7 o'clock in the morning until 9 o'clock at night, it's a lot of traffic for 16 homes. So anything Mr. Scott could do to minimize that, it would be greatly appreciated by the locals.
Okay, with that being, can we want anything adjusted or take the vote? Take the vote? Okay. So Brenda already seconded, so we'll go to Mark.
Support, yeah.
Brent?
Yes.
Darren?
Aye.
Motion, with that being, motion carried. 5 to 7 business days, you have a letter in the mail. Please work with the town and get necessary documentation in place and ensure that everything's up to par for your subdivision development.
We need to call the town, for traffic calming is the
Yeah.
town.
Make sure you get in touch with the town, but the applicants, the public, you guys can contact the town, not through PAC, about the traffic calming measures. Please contact the town about that. You're welcome. Thanks, Darren. We'll move on to item 7E. An application for a rooftop patio as a discretionary use at 170 Hampton Road. Jennifer, can you please introduce the topic, and could the applicant please come up to the podium, please? Oh, Jennifer, go ahead, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Before you is a request for a rooftop patio located at 170 Hampton Road. An outdoor patio is not listed as a permitted or discretionary use in the zoning bylaw. Therefore, PAC must determine if the proposed use is considered similar or compatible with the existing use, and if approved, can implement terms and conditions. This file also requires a variance to section 6J. A lot in a C zone abutting an R zone is required to have the yard abutting the R zone with a depth twice the height of the main building or structure. The proposed rooftop patio is 58 square meters and is accessed from a wooden staircase found at the rear of the building. Proposed hours of operation are 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Live music without amplification is proposed for the patio. The applicant wishes this to be an all-season patio, but realizes that it may be limited to 6 to 8 months depending on weather. Liquor is proposed to be served and consumed on the deck, and the patio does not include a dance floor area. The rear of the building does abut an R zone. The closest residential building to the proposed patio is 28 meters. Several concerns have been received from abutting residential neighborhood. Most concerns are surrounding noise pollution and privacy. Staff share these same concerns. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Could you please state your name for the record, please?
Sure, my name and the property at 170 Hampton Road.
Yeah, I just turned the mic's on there now. He's a member, works for the company. You would have received the same package we did in the mail. Is there anything you'd like to add or discuss prior to members of PAC or the public asking you any questions?
Yes, please. Thank you for the
Can you
opportunity.
come over to the mic a little bit closer, Glenn?
There, is that better? Yeah, okay, sorry. Thank you for the opportunity. I've got some information to share. I will try to address some of the concerns, and there's a number of members of our team here as well to address any technical questions, etc. This might be a good time for me to note that I'm familiar with many of the residents who responded. One family in particular is a close friends of my family. I respect their views. I respect their opinions. I respect their concerns. I've no doubt that the events that they've related occurred. There's no question there. As noted by staff, the primary concerns addressed, I guess in my view, were noise pollution, sight lines, particularly to and from the properties, and light pollution. I'll try to comment as briefly as I can on those. I know it's getting late. And we don't dismiss those concerns, but I think to understand them, we need to look a little bit at history here. This family has operated a licensed establishment on this site for nearly 40 years. Prior to 2007, it was operated and managed by the current owner's brother, who's now deceased. Not to say that we should dismiss that history, but I think we do need to recognize that brothers are not alike. And probably we should view events taking place during that period through that lens. In 2018, this location was rebranded as Amici. Much like the community, much like the industry, the focus of the business has changed. You know, in the old days, these establishments were places for the boys to go, to let loose, to have some fun. That's not the business we're trying to operate. Amici's is set up to be a gastropub. Think about Brits in St. John. Think about Cask and Kettle. That's the new business model. That's what we're trying to do here. We've made a concerted effort to try to change the business to keep up with trends in the community. I don't have firsthand knowledge, but it's my understanding there have not been live rock and roll bands at this location for several years. Bass music and drums were a long time ago. Current entertainment is consistent with the gastropub theme. Solo performers, possibly duets, maybe the odd trio, playing in a lighter environment. Again, I'm not trying to be dismissive here, but I'm just trying to state what's happened in the past. In terms of noise pollution, we understand loud music, car exhausts, gunning motorcycles, loud conversations. They're not acceptable. They're a concern.
They're concerned for everybody. You know, we're a neighborhood pub. We want to be a neighborhood pub. We want to be a good neighbor. We've already spoken about music. We've already talked about music on the patio will be occasional and it'll be acoustic. I won't talk any more there. You know, external noise, shouting, that's disturbing. Again, it's my understanding that over the last several years, there have been few, if any, noise complaints, or other complaints for that matter, from the public. I don't have data to support that. That's simply what I've been told. You know, we'll continue to try to enforce our noise policies, but we think we're doing a pretty good job there. The design of the patio is intended to address noise. At the foot of the access stairs is a 6-foot-tall perimeter fence. The only access to the patio will be through the dining room and then up the stairs. There's no ability for people to congregate at the back of the building because of that fence. That hopefully will eliminate any problem that's there today. The other thing I'd like to point out, and this may come as a bit of a surprise, is the addition of the patio does not increase the current capacity of Amici's. It's still limited to 110 people. There will be more constraints, or more seats, sorry, but we still cannot have more people on the premises than we're authorized for today. That also will, I think, becomes important when we consider parking. The constraint, as I understand it, is caused by the available washrooms. That, combined with the fact that the patio will close at 10 p.m., I would say suggests that there should be no significant increase to late night noise, yelling, etc., than might be expected today. As I mentioned, there will be a gate and a fence at the bottom of the patio. The gate will open only from the inside for fire purposes. There'll be no outside access. Access to the patio will be limited after 10 p.m. and before 11 a.m. At present, the plan is to have 4-foot picket fence, wooden picket fence, on the top of the roof of the patio, facing the residents. You know, in terms of traffic noise, and this was pointed out by one of the respondents, this comes from multiple sources. There's the Amici parking area. There's Campbell Drive, which was noted by one of the respondents in their letter. There's Hampton Road. There's the Tim Hortons parking lot. And there's the Schulten's gas bar. So, yes, there's traffic. Again, we try to control the premises, but I think we have to acknowledge we are not the only source of traffic noise. Adding a patio, in my opinion, won't change that because of the overall capacity and the 10 p.m. closing time matters that I've already discussed. I guess privacy, I think that's a big concern, not just for the residents, but also for us. Their privacy and the privacy of our guests. I have a photo map with me taken from the rooftop earlier today. I have 2 copies which I can share if you like. Yeah, sure. Yeah. I think what those photographs demonstrate is with the existing foliage and trees, there are very few sight lines to, or at least certainly from the patio. So, and again, don't forget I mentioned the 6-foot tall perimeter fencing earlier. That will be at ground level, but will still, again, protect from that vantage point down. There will also be the 4-foot picket fence that I mentioned up on the patio itself, which will also restrict sight lines for anyone seated. There's USBs and videos available if you'd like them, but it's probably not, probably not conducive to the time. In terms of light pollution, and you'll see this in the photos, there is a large street light at the rear of the parking lot between Schultens and Amici. It throws a lot of light. That light will be a significant source of light for the patio. There will be, I'll call them patio lights, low patio lights, light strings on the rail. We do not anticipate large light standards, that sort of thing. And again, as I mentioned, we intend to be closed by 10 p.m. So those factors, plus the growth, the trees, as I mentioned earlier, and you can see from the photos, we believe will address or should address any concerns about lighting. Again, as I mentioned earlier, all access to the patio will be through the dining room. We'll know who's coming, we'll know who's going. We should be able to control any gathering, etc., outside that might occur or could occur as a result of construction of the patio. I guess just one other point, and maybe it's a point of clarification. It was noted in the staff report, I think, that 80% of the residents contacted expressed concerns. As I recall, there were 2 of the responses came from folk that were not contacted. They were outside of the initial reach. So I don't think it's fair to count those in the tally. Of the remaining responses, there's at least one that, in my view, was supportive so long as the closing time was 10 p.m. or later, and music was of the acoustic variety, which are both conditions that we put in the application. Not exactly sure whether that one falls into the 6 bucket or the 2 bucket, but there was one response there, which I said was actually, to my reading, was consistent with what we were asking for. And there was at least one other response, which really wasn't specific to the patio or Amici's itself. It was against commercial development in general. So I just maybe ask that when you look at the 80% characterization, again, that you do that with a bit of reflection. We've engaged professional assistants in the design, etc. I won't go over the details that are in the staff report, but Johnson Engineered Solutions Limited has been engaged in the design. They've provided the necessary confirmation that the structure is suitable for this, that we meet the technical standards, and they will be involved in the build as well. So we've worked and we'll be working closely with them. I guess just to wrap up, obviously, with COVID, with what's happened in the community, There's been a significant outdoor move to dining on patios. Customers enjoy eating outside. We're trying to provide an enjoyable, unique dining experience for our customers. As I said earlier, the focus of Amici's is a food-first focus. Our target clientele is couples, it's business people, it's young professionals. You know, the old days are gone. We don't want to be in that business. It'll probably surprise a lot of people to hear that Amici's actually has a children's menu. I think that's quite reflective of how the business has changed. You know, obviously this is important to us because, like many restaurants, COVID has been very difficult. This is our opportunity to try to reattract our business, to try to get people out enjoying our food. We're currently at a competitive disadvantage in the valley. All of our competitors have patios. St. Louis, Bootstrap, which is now closed, had a patio. It was also in Quispamsis. Vito's, Peddler's Creek, and the new Cask and Kettle establishment. They've all got outdoor patios. Customers go to patios. We don't have one. Even Tim Hortons across the road has a patio. I guess all I can really say in closing is I've talked about the transformation in the business. I've talked about what we can do. Really, the rooftop patio is the last step to implementing our vision of being a place where the community, the neighbors are pleased to dine. So thank you for your time and attention.
You're welcome. Any members of PAC have questions for the applicant? Brenda?
Just a clarification. I visited site there yesterday and I asked for a ladder and I climbed up the ladder to the roof level to look over to Leiden. But I thought that wall on the top of the patio was going to be 6 feet, but you say it's only 4 feet.
I believe that's correct. The wall on top of the patio was the 4-foot picket. 4-foot picket, yes.
Yeah, then I was basing my judgment on a 6-foot wall.
Yeah.
Because nobody could see anything to wide slide.
We have pictures here to see the sight lines.
Right.
And again, if, you know, we're not locked into a 4-foot wall. Like we're open to suggestions. Like I said, we want to work with the community. We want to do what's right. If a 6-foot wall solves the problem, then it's a 6-foot wall.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, you're welcome.
Dwight?
I should point out that the wood wall is on the rear portion. The plan is for the front portion facing Hampton Drive to be glass.
Towards Leiden was.
That's right, would be wood. Towards Wyden
Yeah.
and the rear portion of the ends.
Go ahead, Dwight.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, not a question or a comment, but just a point. The presenter had asked to present the photos in an interest of fairness to our applicants. I believe it would be prudent to have PAC have an opportunity to view them before they ask their questions. It may generate more questions, it may answer some.
Can you pass those around? And start one over that way, Glenn?
And I would direct your attention to photos B and C, which I'll direct your attention to photos B and C, which do show the street light I referenced earlier.
Once we're done looking at them, we'll pass a copy down back for the public there to have a look at, so you guys can share that copy. Glenn, is it okay if we keep a copy for the record, for our records?
Yeah, yes, you may. There's
Okay.
one set that has some writing on the top corner of the front page in pencil. That's actually my personal copy.
Yeah, okay.
I shared it in the interest of expediency. I think it's the one I started over here,
Okay,
but certainly the other one's for you.
perfect. We'll pass the unwritten one to the back for the public to have a look at.
Sure.
Thank you.
And I mentioned as well that there is a video and a USB, but I think in the interest of time, we'll.
Yeah, I don't think we need to see that tonight. So. Mark, you got a question now?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, to you, yeah. What's all the letters on the first picture, A, B, C, D, E, F represent?
You represent the photos?
Those represent the various sight lines. You'll notice each picture attached is referenced A, B, C, or D. So, yeah,
angles.
you look at
Okay.
A on the master picture, and photo A shows the photo that was taken from that direction.
Thank you. I received quite a few calls from local residents, and I'd like to bring some of those subjects up, and hopefully you can help me out understand. Okay.
And, okay, I have a question. The pictures were taken, well, person standing or sitting?
I believe he was standing when he took the pictures this morning. Yeah, he was standing when he took the pictures this morning.
Okay, if I may, Mr. Chairman. The acoustic music, how do you define acoustic music? What's included in that?
Well, it was actually outlined in one of the letters, but the letter from, I think it was the McDougalls, described pretty much right to the beat.
Okay, can you explain it to me? Is it just a guitar, no amplifier, no microphone?
No, there'd be a microphone.
And there's a microphone?
Yes.
So there's gonna be an amplifier too?
Again, I believe that's correct. No microphone? No,
Just a guitar?
just a guitar.
Okay.
That's correct, right? I'm sorry. Yeah, no microphone, just a guitar is the answer. No yeah, what he said, no amplification.
Another concern that I received a call on was the garbage at the back.
Yes.
I visited the site myself, not yesterday, the day before, and one of the cover is open, give access to the birds to access the garbage and on and on. Could you confirm to us that there'll be cover closed at all time and locked so nobody else can, and just use it for your own purpose?
Okay, I'll try to explain the garbage situation. I was there yesterday as well. And obviously, garbage on the ground is not acceptable. And we do have a gentleman who is responsible to come in and clean up. We'll enhance our procedures, I guess is maybe the right term, to, have staff, et cetera, pay closer attention. And we'll look at a solution like you suggested. Again, like I said earlier, we want to be a good neighbor. If it's a problem and there's a reasonable solution, we'll deal with it.
I'm only expressing some of the concern that I
Yeah.
received from local
Yeah,
citizens close
yeah.
by. So
But if I may, there's another concern there, though, that we can't totally control, and that's illegal dumping. That's people coming on the property and leaving garbage, sometimes in our bin and sometimes on the ground. And that's why we still need to have processes and procedures to keep an eye on the place and keep it picked up. And I acknowledge the garbage that was there yesterday, from my viewing, that was our garbage, in my opinion, from what I saw.
Yes, the cover was open.
Yes, I agree.
So the bird gets access to it and other animals and.
Yeah, I agree.
Could have a party going on in there
Among
and
the
spread it
people
around.
here tonight is the manager,
Okay.
and I agree, the garbage needs a better solution.
Another question I had is, sometime, I understand, and it wasn't open yesterday 2 days ago when I was there, but I understand the back door sometimes is open at night when there's music being played inside and it, just blows outside, I guess. What's the thought on this? Why is the door open?
The back door's not open, it's locked, it's just unbolted as a fire escape, so it's not.
Yeah, Yeah, I can't, again, I can't comment more specifically than that. It's not supposed to be open. I believe in the old days, it was open. And I believe the reason, or part of it, and this is supposition, was smoking. And it was open because of the accumulation of smoke and let the smoke out. And that's exacerbated by the fact that the band was set up right beside the door. However, we no longer have smoking.
Okay.
With the renovation we did in 2018, we installed heat ducts for air conditioning. There's no reason for that door to be open.
That's a good point. That's what I'm asking for. Yeah.
And I would also say, like I said earlier, access to the patio will be through the dining room. Obviously, a door will open and close for that, but that's surrounded by the solid 6-foot fence that I referred to earlier. So I believe that that will provide soundproofing.
So, okay, you triggering another question here. You say the access to the patio will be from the inside?
Yes,
there's a staircase outside.
Yes. But
that will be access to the patio also?
Yeah. Basically, if someone wants to access the patio,
yeah,
they'll need to come into the dining room, exit through a back door, and go up the staircase. That back door that they exit through will be surrounded by the 6-foot solid perimeter fence that I referred to earlier.
Okay.
But there'll be no coming and going on the patio without coming through the dining room.
Yeah. Okay. That's good for me. Thank you very much.
Okay,
for
well,
now. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep, go ahead, Brent.
So question to follow up with what Marcus asked, you're saying you're gonna put up a 6-foot, you're saying you're gonna put up a 6-foot fence behind that door, which is your fire escape. So my other question is, what happens to that fence with regards to your fire escape plan?
There will be a push bar on the fence door from the inside. Again, I believe that's correct in the design there.
Okay.
So if there's a fire, you push the door, the same as any fire door, and it'll open into the parking lot.
Okay. So my other question is, with regards to Mr. and Mrs. Carville, have indicated that the dumpsters from Michi's are actually sitting on their property.
No, that's incorrect. It's not on their property. The property that they are on is zoned residential, but it's owned by 640091, the same company that owns 170 Hampton Road in Amicis. So we own the property the dumpsters are on, but they're on the very back of that property, abutting our property, but yes, it is zoned residential.
Does that cause a problem, Dwight, having commercial applications on a residential property?
In terms of the bylaw, you have a single lot that abuts the commercial, and as indicated, is zone residential, so the use of that lot right now is for garbage storage. So we would go to the bylaw and say, is storage of garbage containers a permitted use or discretionary use? And the answer, based on the letter of the law of the bylaw, is no, right? But again, it's important, and through you, Mr. Chair, to PAC to consider the application and the request that's before PAC. Okay, is this a separate issue that needs to be submitted to town for us to take care of? The application that's before PAC tonight is dealing with a rooftop patio and a permitted use under the authority of the bylaw with respect to considering as a similar use. If this is an item that needs to be looked at further, then it can be referred to staff. But again, just through you, Mr. Chair, to the application that's before PAC is to consider rooftop patio as a similar, considered under the authority to be a similar use.
Thanks, Dwight.
And again, to my earlier comments, we're not looking to be a bad neighbor here. If it's a problem, we'll deal with it.
Okay. John?
Yeah, what's the maximum capacity on your rooftop patio?
The maximum capacity on the rooftop patio, it will be 60.
60?
60.
Thank you.
Any further questions from PAC before we? Oh, Brent?
For the engineers, I know you're saying right now you're looking at a 4-foot fence. If that goes to a 6-foot fence, does that change your structural integrity?
Oh, it makes the fencing a little bit more rugged, but it can be worked into the existing structure. So it can be solved, it's just more money.
I understand that, but I'm not asking financially. I'm asking.
No, it can be solved. So yes, it can be done. So it's just that it will cost a little bit more money, but yes, it can be switched to a 6-foot.
John? No question, John? Sorry. I just got one little quick question there. How do you, you said that with the rooftop capacity was 60. How do you guarantee that, I guess? How is that?
Fire marshal's office.
I understand that, but from a perspective of the bartender or the management of the restaurant going to manage those? Go ahead, Glenn, sorry.
Yeah, again, if I may, all access will be through the dining room.
Gotcha.
There will be no people jumping the fence to get in or that sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Further clarify, under the building code bylaw.
Excuse me,
Would
can
you
you
take the
please come to the
microphone?
podium and state your name for the record?
Hi, I'm Andrew Johnson.
Yes.
So, under the building code, the issue would be that the posted limit has to be posted on the stair going up the stairs, so the maximum amount of people up there. So in case your fire department wanted to do a visit later and they did a count, they could go and penalize the owner quite easily because they have a posted limit and it's called, you have 61 people here, you're not allowed 61.
Okay, so we'll be posted. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. With that being, any more questions from PAC? None being, anyone in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Yeah, come on up, please. Come up one at a time. Come up and state your name for the record and, pardon? Yeah, we have a 10-minute time limit per person, so we'll, for the public, so we'll.
Okay, my
That
name
timer-
is Trinta Carvel, and I live at 13 Leyden Drive. And thank you for the opportunity to express my concerns and ask some questions. And I'm a little unorganized because I was writing notes as Glenn spoke, but I'm just going to go through them. You mentioned about the lights, and I was just wondering if they do have lights on the patio, if they'd be directed at our street or away, or how that would work. Should I just keep going through the questions and then get the answers at the end? I mentioned the 60 people on the patio. I wondered if that included staff. And also, in terms of the live music, no microphone, no amp, but I just wonder how you still control how loud that gets. I'm just thinking 60 people and music might be fairly loud. I don't know.
I'm not sure the music was on the deck though, it was inside, wasn't it?
Oh, I thought he meant the guitar was going to be
deck?
on the
Okay.
patio. Yeah. And 60 people, yeah, that seems like a lot of noise, but I'm not an expert on that. Glenn mentioned that it's closing at 10 p.m., but I just wondered what time it's going to be open. 11 in the morning?
Yeah, not before 11 in the morning.
I don't think Mr. Chipola lives in our neighborhood. I'm not sure. So I just, is it Mr. Chipola, the owner?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't believe he lives in our neighborhood. You don't live in our neighborhood, do you? No, okay. No, okay. You said it's going to be 6 foot, moved from a 4-foot fence to a 6-foot fence up on the roof?
Yeah.
Okay, and I guess what I'm wondering too is, the patio's not gonna be right on the roof, right? Are they gonna build up on top of that? How much higher is it going to be up? Because that'll raise the sight lines, right? About a foot? You don't know exactly, eh? Because that will affect the sight lines, right? If it's up another. Yeah, yeah. And a picket fence, not a solid fence. Is that right?
Yeah, we'll ask the question.
Correct, but
Yeah.
as I indicated when I was up there, we can change the design of the fence if it's problematic. But there is, I think, still confusion about the fences. The 6-foot fence is on the ground.
Okay.
The fence proposed for the patio itself is the 4-foot fence. It's not 6 going to 4.
Okay. And the other thing I didn't understand was the stairs are outside, so they're going to come out the back door, is that right? And then go up the stairs to sit on the patio? Or are they going
Yep.
from inside?
Outside.
So every time that door opens for people to go upstairs, if there's any music inside, it'll come out that door, right? Will there be music inside the dining room as well as on the patio?
Yeah, I don't know if you prefer we address these as we go or wait to address them.
Just
separately.
do them at the end.
Okay.
Do them at the end.
So that was my other question. I guess if there's music in the dining room, then every time that door opens for people to go upstairs, that music's going to come out if it's louder music. I guess if it does go ahead, I'd want to have some sort of sound barrier back there, not just a 4-foot picket fence. I saw the sight lines. It doesn't look like you can see much. I know noise does travel up our street, and you mentioned that you weren't going to consider something the people that were beyond the 100 meters, but I don't know if that's fair because the music doesn't just stop at our house, it goes right up the street.
It's just a bylaw, Trinda, how that applicants get letters who are within a 100-meter radius.
So does that mean you don't consider anybody else, just the 100 meter?
They're the only people that get letters, so if they, if someone wants to come to the public forum, they could come to the meeting.
Some of those
They
people
don't get
did send letters
notification.
in.
They don't get notification.
No, I know that, but some of those people did send letters in because I went and told them about
Yeah.
it.
Well, they're all, we have them all.
But they're all counted.
Yep.
Okay.
We have them all.
Okay, thank
Anyone
you.
that sent a letter, we have it.
Okay. I also wondered what it meant by occasional. They said occasional music. That's sort of subjective. I was wondering how often that was going to be. And I also wanted to note that I'm not opposed to a patio. It's just on the rooftop. Like if it was on the driveway in that little elbow of the building, I think that'd be a good spot for it. The noise wouldn't go up the street. Sorry, I know everybody's tired. And let's see what else I had. Access from inside. I guess that's it. So overall, I'm not in favor of it. I do like Amicis. I've been inside. It is nice, but I just, as a neighbor, I wouldn't want to listen to that from 11 in the morning all day in my yard, and I wonder if anybody else would, or if even Mr. Chipola would be interested in listening to music from a rooftop patio in their backyard. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. Is there anyone else willing to speak? Could you please come up and state your name for the record, please?
Is it all right to take this off since I'm not near anybody, or? 6 feet away is, right, so. Well, policy is 6 feet if you're not for 15 minutes or whatever. Anyways, my name's Dave McDougall, and I live at 3 Leiden Drive. And the gentleman said the business has been there for 40 years. Well, I've been living there for 34 years. And there's been numerous noise complaints, and I don't know if anybody on the PAC had investigated going to the police to see how many calls have been called for noise violations, because not going to get any response from the owner because They're just gonna say that they didn't have it. So anyways, my other thing was, they mentioned about music, and I was the one that did say about the acoustic stuff, and that's supposed to be just a guitar with no amplifier or anything. It's fine. And the other thing is, everybody's going on about a sight line. Well, the sight line is, the trees are filled in right now. Not to say that any of them won't blow down or be cut down. I think if they're gonna put a 6-foot wall up, it should be towards Leiden Drive side, so you can't see, or it's probably to stop any noise that's up in that area. The other thing is, I thought the gentleman said there was capacity was 120 people for Amici's. So, and 60 of them people are gonna be on the rooftop? Well, there's a lot more space down underneath for 60 people, so.
Yeah, but they're limited, they said their application's limited to 110.
Right.
The application's gonna allow 60 on the roof, so that would leave 50 inside.
Right, and inside's a lot bigger than up
Yeah,
on the
but
rooftop.
but that's what that's not, we don't enforce that. That's a bylaw that, and the
And I'm
fire
not saying,
marshal.
I'm not saying that you do, but I'm saying to have everybody crammed in on the rooftop with 60 people is a lot of people and a lot of noise with everybody talking, and the more you drink, the louder you get. And so now, the Pizza Delight hasn't been open for 2 or 3 years now. And you can drive by the Amici's, or whatever you want to call it, any given day of the week, and maybe see 1 or 2 cars. So there shouldn't be any problem to put the patio on ground level in that little corner going into the establishment that would block the noise and everything away from everybody else. And it's not going to be taken away from all his parking spots, because the place is never full as it is. So that's my concern. And, you know, they're saying that they want to change the business around. Well, he had that opportunity of changing the business around in 2018, where he was supposed to be getting so-called the riffraff out of there, which would be me, because I used to frequent the place. And so he had an invite for his special guests, which was going to be his doctors and lawyers and friends. Well, none of them are there anymore. They don't come. They were there for the invitation, and that was it. They haven't been back since. So I don't know why you need a rooftop when you don't have people there as it is. That parking lot is never full of cars. So that's my complaints, and whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other?
By the way, this is not to take away from Mr. Chipola's livelihood. This is just to deal with this application here. So, you know, and like I say, the sight lines are not one thing. It's a 6-foot wall or something, should be up there higher towards Leiden Drive and whatever. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McDougall. Any other people in the audience willing to speak for or against this item? Third and final time, anyone else willing to speak for or against this item? In saying that, we had the concerns here that were submitted to the town with respect to that, and I believe it's probably, I think it's worthwhile, we talked about it, that we read through a couple of these, go through these, and there's I think there's 5 or 6 of them here. 7, and I'll just read through them quick. Dan Martell, I'm writing to express my concern, the application for a seasonal rooftop patio by Amici's Pub and Eatery. Live on 17 Leiden Drive, street behind Amici's Pub. In the summertime, sound carries very well up the street, especially on warm summer days with little wind. Having a rooftop patio with activity in the late hours would present a huge disturbance to the peace that should exist in my neighborhood during late hours and be forced to sleep with my windows closed during warm days, or worse, have to set up sleeping arrangements in my basement to mute the noise would be a major intrusion on my peace and well-being. Bass from music from these types of establishments has carried up the street to my home in the past during the still summer nights. So having a rooftop patio at Macy's would only make that worse. That's Dan Martell. We have another one from a resident at 5 Leiden. Remember that we replied to the first informing this application a few years ago, pointing out the outdoor patio would be a big threat to us as well as residents with children, especially at nighttime due to shouting customers, visual breaching from the patio, etc. Even without any patio, this threat was very serious. It was very scary to see that a resident got to face shouting big chats towards residents' property in the middle of the night. Worried about security. Another one from 8 Donellan Drive, totally against expansion. We moved to Quispam 33 years ago because of a beautiful residential area to bring up our kids. We are present being served by enough establishments in the area. Are we not in Florida? It's been quiet for the past few years without no music and drums playing. You want to approve this expansion, be sensible. Establishments in the neighborhood are not even following to keep up properties. I think PAC Quispam should have a better way of communicating this kind of expansion. I picked up my email Tuesday, and they weren't available to get any response back. Taxpayer needs the town to provide me with necessary privileges of living in this beautiful town. Another one from on Leiden Drive. Most times a very quiet neighborhood. Over the years prior to COVID, there's been many late night instances where noise levels from the businesses operating this location allowed their patrons to congregate outside. This particular problem between May and October. When the patrons have gone outside, we could hear yelling, singing, swearing, and arguing and fighting through our open windows many times until 1 or 2 a.m., especially on weekend nights. When an establishment plays late music, keeps their patrons inside, and the noise levels are bearable. However, allowing an outside patio rooftop would be very detrimental to the residents nearby because of noise pollution. 6 Leiden, my name is Linda Girolamo, my husband's name is Arnie. We just received a letter regarding adding a rooftop to Michi's. We are sorry to be informed that we're not in favor of this proposal because we don't have enough privacy in our backyard. Recently, there was a fight outside the building, and sometimes we saw people on our property. But if they could put a fence around their property, then there'd be no reason to say no. 16 Leiden, for 48 years, I'd like to voice my thoughts about the above project. Not sure, but this may be the 3rd time the project has been considered, and I'd hope you reject the proposal again. The project on the ground in front of the premises, like others in the area, might be something to give consideration to. This operation has been noted for noise in an enclosed building and worse when they open the back door to save on air conditioning. I live 4 homes away from the site and find the noise above normal standards. Having on a raised patio will be totally out of the question. And then another one on from 10 Leiden. Nearby resident of Leiden, we oppose the plan rooftop patio outlined your correspondence dated 28th. Rooftop overlooks the lower end of Leiden Drive as a residential area. And as the construction is elevated, we are concerned about the sound level will travel and interrupt their standard of living. Already we have to put up with motorbikes and cars with exhaust modified to make as much noise as possible while traveling up and down Campbell Drive. The patio would degrade our standard of living. So, just a couple updates of the letter. So Mr. Come back up, please. And maybe you can address the questions from Trinda Carvel. I don't know if you had written them down, Glenn.
I'll try to. I've got a couple of different sets of notes here where
Yep.
we were trying to capture them, and some I did in the confusion. We did
I got them written down so we can try it.
Went to issue went. The first question was about the lights and where they'll be directed. Oh, I'm sorry. The first question was about the lights and where they'll be directed. The lights will be directed inward, other than the ones facing Hampton Road, which will be directed to Hampton Road. But on the Leiden side, the lights will be directed inward. The second question, whether the 60 people include staff, yes, it does. So that's and that's, I guess, to point out that's an approved capacity. That's not necessarily how many people will be up there or how many people it will accommodate. I'll address that later on when I address the other questions. The third question was about music, and there was a lot of discussion about music, and I think we might have addressed that, and if we didn't, I apologize. I didn't get a chance to write down the full question because I was making notes on the other ones, but I think
Yeah,
we
it was
addressed
about live music on the patio, and I think the answer is yes, but it's of the acoustic type with no amplification, is that correct?
That's correct, and
Yeah.
that's not all-day music. That, you know, that would be 2 hours in the evening, and again, only on special occasions is the thinking, like Canada Day, maybe Labor Day, that sort of thing. But it's not all-day music, all-day live music.
And there's music inside also too, coming out through an open door, they could hear the
But again, the music inside, the live performers tend to be 7 to 9, 8 to 10 in the evening. It's not all-day music. And, you know, obviously there's stereo music or whatever, but I don't believe it's played that loudly in there. You know, many of you have been in there, but the live music is typically a 2-hour set, 7 to 9, 8 to 10, that sort of thing. It's not all day. There was also a concern in the questions, I don't recall which questioner it was, about the opening and closing of the door. Well, don't forget that door that's being used to access the patio is surrounded by the solid 6-foot tall fence, which by itself will provide a sound buffer. In addition to that, there's the trees and the foliage back there that provide some buffer. And as I said earlier, even downstairs, if there's music, it's 7 to 9, 8 to 10, and it's acoustic type music. So we think what we've done there, or what we've tried to do, is address some of those concerns. Question about the closing time. You know, the closing time is planned for 10 p.m. Simple as that. Where does the owner live? No, he does not live in the neighborhood. He lives in Rothsay. In terms of the height, how much it will be raised, we confirmed from the drawings, the answer to that was 6 inches. So it will be 6 inches above the existing roof. And next question was about the outdoor music, the open door issue, which I've already addressed. Question, or I think it was more a comment about sound barrier, noise traveling up the street. Music doesn't stop at 100 meters. Was that whole discussion around the, you know, the scope of the survey? I think I've addressed the question of how often the music will be, and again, I would describe it as infrequent. So I believe I've addressed all of the first speaker's questions.
Yep, and I believe Mr. McDougall didn't have any question. He just expressed his concerns and issues.
No, it's just like, I'd rather have a 6-foot wall on the back leading to Lyden Drive.
Okay.
Yeah, as opposed to the proposed 4 foot.
As opposed to the
Yeah.
4 foot.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think Brent had talked about that earlier, so, okay. With that being, any further questions from PAC or Dwight? Anything you want to add or talk about prior to?
Try that again. Oh, there you go. Just a couple of comments. Yes, so as stated before and through you, Mr. Chairman, the application is regarding it being similar to a discretionary use, which is dining, which is we've established is permitted in that zone, and establishing that this use is being similar if it's brought outside. I'll just make a comment that it was mentioned regarding the 80%, that was picked up in a review of the report. So yeah, that was recognized, and we did recognize that some of those were actually not part of the notifications. Yeah.
No, that should be corrected to 70% because we did receive
Yeah,
an
that's
award
right.
after that.
Yeah.
But my apologies, Jerry.
So, just,
Concerns, and that's where the 8 and the 10 notices. Sorry about that.
yeah, so and just to build on that last comment in terms of the number, the key point is the commonality amongst the concerns is noise. So it's for PAC, and based on what's been presented tonight in making a decision, is does PAC feel comfortable that there are ways to mitigate this noise, given the fact that they've established a closing time, given the fact of they're proposing an increase in the height of the wall on the roof. Are those factors considered reasonable to be able to mitigate those issues? So anytime, just referring back to the zoning bylaw and similar compatible authority, again, anytime that PAC considers these applications or grants a variance, the three key factors they look at: is it a reasonable request? Is it desirable? And is it in keeping with the intent of the bylaw? The intent of the bylaw in this particular zone is to permit dining. We have, has been mentioned before, there are other patios in the area. They've come to PAC. Notice has been sent out. Concerns have come in. Terms and conditions have been set, and these have been approved. So, it's not new. There's a precedent. So it's looking at those terms. Is it reasonable what they're asking? Is it reasonable what they're proposing to mitigate the issues? Is it desirable? And then is it in keeping with the intent of the bylaw?
Thanks, Dwight. Brent?
I have one question for the applicant, and regarding your patio. Yeah, sorry. I have a question with regards to the engineering report. So it's saying basically standing room, you're limited to 60, chairs and tables, you're limited to 45. So how are you going to operate the patio? With standing only or with chairs and tables?
Tables,
So
and
you're
when I was responding to their questions, I actually alluded to that point and said I'd come back to it later, and I didn't. And the comment I made is, while there's a capacity of 60, once you put in chairs and tables, then there will be just by doing that physical thing alone, it will reduce the actual capacity down to a lower level. But no, it's not a stand-up bar, stand-up patio, anything like that. It's a sit-down area.
Brent, you, okay?
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chairman.
Ed, Brent?
Oh.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Chairman. Dwight, can I ask a question with regards to the buffer? Do we have to talk about a variance for that? Because that was not put in the notice that went out. Because there's only there's 1.5 feet between the fence and the property line. And I wasn't caught when I put my notice out. Thank you.
So in this particular case, what would have to be granted as a variance by the PAC would be that the addition, so you're adding to the existing structure, therefore there would have to be a variance granted to that requirement that the building be 2.5 times the buffer, the setback. Just let me clarify. So the bylaw says that any building has to be, that abuts a residential zone has to be 2.5 times the height of the building away. The building exists. It's been there for, I think, 40 years around, but it's been there longer than that. So, the officer moved the building to add this? No. So it's something PAC has to consider, granting a variance.
Brent?
Yeah, I'll go ahead, Mr. Chairman. We'll start with the motion anyways. I'll make the motion that PAC approve a rooftop patio for Michi's based on 8-foot fence on the back of 8, off the back of the building from the finished surface. The other walls, the other fences have to meet the National Building Code with regards to safety, so there's no concerns about anybody potentially going over the edge. Capacity to the roof will be 45 people as per the engineering report. There is to be a 6-foot fence with an emergency door at the bottom of the stairs, any lighting on the patio is to be minimized and directed in such a way as to not influence or flow on to the residents at the back of Linden Street. Lighting's to be basically pointed downwards, minimize any light pollution going back that way. And then with regards to the variance as directed, as mentioned by Dwight, we'll include the variance in the motion. I believe that covers everything, Mr. Chairman. Oh, yes, music is limited to acoustic. No amps, just acoustic music, no more than a trio at the most. And the patio has to be shut down by 10 o'clock at night.
Mr. Bishop?
I'll second that.
On the question? Dwight?
On the question, one item, whether it should be included in a development agreement. I'm just getting clarification from, in terms of the zoning bylaw, if any additions or alterations to the building in the commercial zone requires a development agreement.
You okay with that? Aaron? Okay.
Just change the motion, is to be a solid fence, not picket.
Where?
They, in their engineering report, they wanted a picket fence. This is to be a solid fence.
Up top or bottom?
Both.
Are you saying 6 foot on both as well?
No, 6 on the bottom, 8 foot on the top from the finished surface.
8 foot on the patio.
Yeah, from finished surface, because you're gonna have to put something on top of that patio. I'm assuming you're gonna build a platform.
Yeah, we indicated earlier, the patio deck will be raised 6 inches from the
Right, so
existing
now you're gonna,
rooftop.
so the fence is from that 6 inches up.
So 8 feet above
the-
what
from
I'll
the-
call the floor, the patio floor deck.
From the finished surface, yes.
You want to take the mic?
And again, the fence is to be solid, privacy style fence.
Can I ask a very stupid question? Is he allowed putting a sign on the fence towards Hampton Road? Because that's high enough that he can do that?
Well, that'll be a separate
That's a
application.
separate, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Could I ask a question? Are you talking 8 foot from the patio?
We can't get no questions, but we'll explain that. We're in the middle of a motion. Brenda?
Just one quick question. Did you say in your motion that it was the wall facing Leiden? Because the other ones are going to be glass. Yeah, that only one wall. Okay, thanks.
The wall and back's 8 feet? Solid.
Solid privacy fence. Across the back is lighting. It's from the finished surface.
Okay.
The other 3 walls have to meet the national building code and safety values, so there's no opportunity to potentially
Okay.
fall over.
Yeah. Brenda, you okay? Mark?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add one more, that the back door is closed at all time except when people are walking in and out. It cannot be open because it's too warm inside. Back door has to be closed because the music will move along, and we discussed that earlier.
No, and again, because of the installation of the heat pumps, I guess, a few years ago, that only makes sense.
Okay, you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so basically the door is open when people are going through it.
and do a better job with the garbage.
Okay, so before we do the vote, Violet, is there a way we can read that motion back? I just think it's all in fairness for the,
I really would like to rewrite this, but basically the gist.
oh, hang on, go ahead.
Is to approve it based on an 8-foot solid privacy fence on the patio, measuring from the finished surface. And they're not in the right order, I'll change that, okay? Capacity to be maxed out at 45 people, based on an engineer report. A 6-foot solid privacy fence is on the bottom of the patio at the rear of the property. At the bottom of the, that's that cement patio.
Yeah.
Cement pad, right? Okay. Cement pad, okay? The lights are to be directed away from the residential properties and pointed downwards. Okay, music is only acoustic without any amps. The patio is shut down by 10 p.m. A developer's agreement is completed with the developer and the town. It's a repeat here, sorry, the fence on the patio is to be solid. Okay, so I got that. The rear door must be closed at all times except for people coming in and out, not open for air control. Oh, did anybody note that, the variance? That the variance is, that's at first, okay. For the setback? Okay. Through you, Mr. Chairman, then can I ask a question if there's a approval required for the height of an 8-foot fence, because an 8-foot fence according to the zoning bylaw is only permitted if it's protecting a pool. Sorry, guys, just clarifying.
White, do you have any response to that, or can we want to recommend something that we are not allowed to do?
The fact that PAC is considering this application as the terms of and conditions of approval, it infers that you are approving the variance.
Perfect, thank you. All those in, so with all that said, all those in favor, is the voting available? No, no voting available?
Sorry, I'm still typing.
Okay.
Should we add in their building permit required before any construction starts? I know we put in other motions, but
That gets included in the development agreement.
Yeah.
So it's automatic.
Okay, with that, we'll take a vote. We'll do Brenda,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
we'll do John.
Yes.
There you go, motion's approved. Please make sure you have all your applicable documentation in place, work with the town. I believe things got settled with the neighbors somewhat there on the fencing, and hopefully everything will work out, and we'll have a good neighbor and a good establishment to go forward with. And I think we were successful in getting all the recommendations approved there. So with that, we'll move on to our next item.
May I just say thank you for your time and consideration?
Item 8, information and other items, none being. We'll move on to item 9, motion to adjourn. Mr.
So
Bishop?
moved.
Seconder on that? John, second.